Hey folks, coming in hot with an episode of The Leap today. We've got an awesome guest, and we're going to get started here in just a minute. So, thanks for joining. All right, see some folks trickling in. Thanks for coming. Appreciate y'all. We're going to get started in just a second here, and we're going to talk to an amazing guest today, which who is bringing a very interesting perspective of somebody who went straight from college into starting their own business. So, super excited to chat with Bailey today, and I think I see. Let me see if I can get her up here. Let's see if that. Wow, first try. That's like the first time ever I've gotten that right on the first try. um, it's so great to meet you, and thanks so much for joining us this week. I appreciate it. I'm gonna do like a quick little intro just so everybody knows what's going on, and then we'll jump right into it.
Good.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining. I see some more folks trickling in here. My name's Rachel Rennick. I am the co-founder and CEO of Wethos, which is a platform that helps freelancers team up and form what we're calling virtual studios. So it makes it easy to price projects and split payments. Every week I am talking to new entrepreneurs who have taken the leap into freelance. And this week our guest is super exciting. Bailey, and correct me if I'm saying your name wrong, Bailey Thibodeaux, is that right?
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh, crushed it. I actually haven't had a boss with that last name once, so I'm kind of cheating. Anyways, Bailey is the founder and the head designer of Honeywave Creative, where she specializes in brand and website designs. She's an alumni of the University of Louisiana in Monroe, and has a bachelor's degree in both marketing and a master's degree from the University of Mississippi in business admin, which officially makes you way more qualified for this interview than me. She's got an amazing creative mind. And, Bailey's focus is really on helping visionaries grow their business and strategically, designing brands and websites so that they don't just look great, but of course are communicating and selling to the right customers. So Bailey, super excited to chat today. I know you've got such an interesting perspective as somebody who went right from school and starting your own business. So I'd love to just start there and tell us a little bit more about like your journey and starting the business and how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, of course. So I do feel like I have a bit of a unique perspective, and it was not even something I was looking for whenever I was in school and graduating. But basically, what happened was I went to undergrad for marketing, and then I was about to graduate, didn't know what I wanted to do, and nobody wanted to hire me. So I said, okay, I'll go and do grad school. So I went and got my master's, and then at the end of that year, still nobody would like I couldn't find a job, nobody's hiring, and then we were in the middle of COVID. And so I was like, oh my gosh, really nobody's hiring. I can't do anything. And so I was starting to look around kind of, that was whenever I got interested in websites and kind of brand design. I started following some people on Instagram. So that's whenever I realized that was even a thing. And so what I did was I tried finding a local business that I was going to go and kind of apprenticeship for, like just get mentored and almost be an intern for them. And start with like no pay, but I was like, it's okay. I'm learning. I'll be able to do something from there. And so I found somebody in my hometown, and I was about to start working. And then on the first day of work, a hurricane hit our city, and we were
Oh my
out
God.
of the months. And so I like went up. We were like probably 4 hours away, living in a hotel for 3 months after that. And so that was really where I was like, I was trying to reach out to him, and he wasn't responding, which understandable because like people didn't have homes, so I don't even know what was going on with him. But I'm just sitting in a hotel. I was like, this is crazy. Like nobody wants to hire me. Why don't I just hire myself? Like there's no better time than now. And so I just sat in the lobby in the hotel room for 2 to 3 months and taught myself how to do websites and brand design by just watching YouTube videos.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I always joke, I'm like, yes, I also attended the University of Google, which is to Google your way through most things. And I feel like that's something that has come up a bunch of times just in talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, which is like that resourcefulness and the understanding of, knowing that you can learn anything and that you can, apply yourself in ways that you're choosing. So I'm like very curious because obviously, a lot of people that will, maybe not obviously, but a lot of the people that we've talked to come from a background and were either like in-house at big companies or at agencies, and then they went off to, start their own business. I imagine it's like a very different ball game starting from scratch. And I'm curious, like, can you tell us a little bit more about how you went about, building your professional network? You touched a little bit about your first client, but I know this is a barrier to a lot of folks who are just starting out. So tell us a little bit more about like how you thought about, building that network from day one and the client
Yeah.
base.
So whenever I first started, especially like, well, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was watching the YouTube videos, but whenever it actually came to like, what do I give somebody with a brand design? I'd give them a logo. I don't even know what else. And so at the very beginning stage, I invested in a course. And that is something I highly recommend, especially for somebody that hasn't worked at one of these agencies before. Find somebody in the industry that you really look up to and that is basically has the business that you want to have or is living the life that you want to live. And then if they have a course, invest in it, because the one that I did was amazing. And she actually taught me how I should set up my business, the type of packages I could offer, and then kind of just showed me the ropes of what people are expecting from me, because I honestly didn't have a clue. I was like, okay, I'll build you a website. I didn't know what they're expecting. And so that course really helped me in the beginning to teach me what to expect and what others were expecting of me, so that I could actually give them give them products that delivered results.
Yeah. Do you have a name for that course in particular?
Yeah. So shout out to Alex at High Moon Studio. She actually just took her courses down a couple months ago, I think. She's building out a whole platform now, though. So
awesome.
It's going to be, but I think in a couple of months, she has this big platform she's building, and I think it's going to be for people who are wanting to do brand and website design, and then also for people who are just like DIYing their own brand. There should be some info. So High Moon Studio, if y'all want to give her a follow, that's the one that taught me how to start my business. All props to her.
That's awesome. I think like, even in talking to clients, like so much of the time they don't know what they're looking for or what to expect. And so being able to articulate those expectations and then actually like deliver on those expectations is like the whole name of the game, right? And so I feel like having a solid foundation and infrastructure there is super important. From a friends and family standpoint, I was really curious to get your thoughts on this. So like, I will never forget when I quit my job when I was 25, and I remember calling my mom and my dad. I called them separately. They both had completely different reactions, but nothing that surprised me. My dad was like, wondering how I'm going to survive. And my mom, who has been an entrepreneur, was like, fuck yeah, girl, quit that job. But, I remember like walking through the plans, and of course, things have not unfolded the way that I thought they would, but still here, still alive. So I was curious to get your thoughts on like how your, friends or family reacted when you tell them that, you're going to start your own business instead of maybe going down a more traditional path. Like, how'd that conversation go, and how'd you navigate it?
Yeah. So for me, I feel like it wasn't as difficult as for you, probably, just because you had the job to begin with. I didn't have the job, and we were in a hotel, and so I was like, hey, I'm gonna just start my own business, and I'm just gonna learn it while we're at this hotel. They're like, okay, and then my grandparents are up there too, and so like I said I was gonna do it. And knowing me, they should have known that I was actually going to do it. But I think they were all just kind of like, okay, yeah, like go learn. Whenever we get back, you can actually go work for somebody. But I actually learned, and it's one of my first clients, the gym that we were working out there, he was a personal trainer, and I made a logo for him like while we were at that hotel. And so they're like, oh, okay, like you actually, you had a client. That's cool. And so I'm getting distracted. Gabby messaged me trying to explain. But so that was the first. I don't think they believed that I was going to do it. And then after I actually got into it, I of course heard the typical from grandparents like, well, what are you going to do about retirement? Or you're going to have to pay your own health insurance. Like, it's not going to work out for you. It's like, if I'm making enough money, it don't matter if I have to pay my own health insurance. It's fine. I'll cover it. And so it's just kind of getting those voices in your head. But I think overall, everybody was supportive. And then even the people that kind of had their doubts, and everybody who's listening, like if somebody has their doubts, a lot of people, especially the older generation, don't realize the opportunity that's out there in the internet and what's possible. And so you tell them that you're going to make a business from Instagram, and they look at you like, yeah, okay, good luck with that. Like, but you get into it, and then you start showing them the numbers, and they're like, wow, okay, like. And even after my first year, I was talking to my grandpa the other day, and even after my first year in business, he said, I'm really impressed with how this business is working out for you. He said, I didn't believe it was going to work. And then even the first couple of months, like you were getting the hang of it, I thought you were just getting lucky. He said, but this is actually working. Like, it's good on you. So just to anybody listening, even if you have the doubters out there, don't let them get in your head. Just believe in yourself. Like, it's going to work, make it work and make it happen.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I always joke. I'm like, I've had a lot of people in the course of my career that want to believe me, but they don't, like they're like, oh, like the signs are there, but like they don't. And I always like, I could not agree more, which is like, well, I could sit here trying to convince people to believe me, or I could just go out and do it. And then there's no question at all. So I feel like that is such a good takeaway. And I definitely agree too that I don't think anybody really necessarily realizes like how much potential there is out there. And there are so many businesses today that are internet first, like we're started on the internet. And that is like a huge thing. And I think that people underestimate what's possible because they're kind of limited by their previous notions of it. Do you, was there an inflection point or a turning point where you realized, hey, like I'm actually never going to probably get a traditional, maybe full-time job? And like, what was that like?
Honestly, I think it was probably in the hotel. Like even before I really got into it, I was just, I think too, being on the business side of Instagram, we probably get brainwashed because it's all these people saying like, I'm never going back, and like how awesome entrepreneurism is, And so I had all those voices in my head, and I always knew I wanted to start a business. I just didn't think it would be that soon. So I think as soon as like I saw that it could be possible, it was like, this is going to be it. We're not doing anything else ever again. This is it.
Yeah, I feel like that's an inflection point too, that like people, even who are just dabbling in freelance for a little bit, and then they have sort of like some of these moments where, you realize like, oh, I have more control over like my time and my flexibility. And I don't think starting a business is any easier than getting a full-time job. I think the challenges are
more difficult, probably.
Yeah, very, very different and difficult. But I think that to your point, like all those sort of objections that you hear from like friends and family, like those are all surmountable, problems, to your point. And so I think like just taking the reins and trying to figure it out is most of the battle.
Yeah.
In terms
of for people especially for people that are problem solvers, you as a business owner, you get to solve problems every single day, and that's almost a challenge that you're solving every day. So it stays interesting, it's never boring, and there's always something new on your plate to handle.
Yeah, for real. It certainly is not boring.
No.
I was curious, like one of the things that we hear a lot from people who are just starting out is like, how do they think about like their hourly rates or their pricing or their packages? Mm-hmm. I noticed on your website that you have a bunch of different like services and packages and pricing. Sorry, my phone wants to die, but not yet. I noticed, I wanted to understand a little bit better, like how you thought about your offerings and your services and how that strategy around, pricing and packaging has evolved over time.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely a person by person thing, because some people, I like to start with thinking, okay, what's the life that I want to live? What do I want that life to look like? And then work backwards and figure out, okay, if I want to travel this much a year and only work this much a week, like, what is that going to look like, and what type of packages do I have to put out there? And then you can kind of use that as your grounds for getting you to where you want to go, and almost like your business as a, I guess, bridge to the life you're wanting to live. But I will say, whenever you're first getting started, there is a grind period there, because you can't come out the gates charging $10,000 for a website, for example, because people are going to look at you like crazy, and you might, if you're just getting started, you probably won't have the experience. Not to say you don't, especially if you're coming from an agency, but I know I did whenever I started. I think I started charging $800 for a full brand design, which in comparison now it's $2,500. And then for a full website, I charged $1,000, and now it's $5,000. So so like I started small, but it was just trying to get clients into the door so that you have examples to show people and you have testimonials to show people. And then I like to say, or what I did, and I found it worked really well, was every time I signed somebody at that price, I bumped it up a little bit and bumped it up a little bit. And then I started hitting resistance points, and so I'd slow down, and then I'd say, okay, let's jump it up, and you jump it up. And once you get the experience, there's really not a limit. Like, as long as you're selling and people are buying, I don't think it's necessarily, like, you don't have to limit yourself. Charge what you want, and you might have less clients, but if you have those few that are paying, that might be all you need,
Yes, completely. And if you are comparing it all to like even small agency or traditional agency, I mean, there's a lot of websites are tens of thousands of dollars. So it's like still a deal, you know, and at the same time, like you're actually able to live life that you want. I love the perspective of starting with like what a real growth trajectory sort of looks like for you, because I think there's a lot of advice out there that tells people to like just start with like what do you need to cover your expenses and then like go from there. And I do think that it's a good and interesting mindset shift to start with like, well, what do I want to be bringing in income and like so that I can do the things that I want to be doing, versus just what do I need to scrape by, because I think that it can be hard to transition from a survival mindset into like a growth mindset, if you're constantly like approaching your business that way. And there obviously are some baseline, you know, things that you need to cover, but I feel like that is really good advice for people who are thinking about their pricing, is like don't just think about it as like what do I need to pay rent. Like you can also set the goals based on, you know, where you really want to go and what you want to bring in ultimately.
Yeah. And think about it too, this is something that really mindset shift for me. Whenever I first got started, I was selling, say it was a website or something for $500. And I remember having a conversation with my dad. I was like, it's so expensive. Should I give him a discount? Like, I just don't know. And this guy, well, it was a side hustle. Well, I shouldn't get too much into detail, but let's just say that $500 was absolutely nothing for him. And so just because you think something's expensive does not mean that whoever you're selling to is going to think it's even remotely expensive. Pricing is so subjective, and just put the value out there and people are going to come.
Yeah, it's funny, like, I actually, when I was freelancing, I pitched against my old agency one time and I came in, I think at 50,000 and they came in at 500,000. And, the client ended up going with the agency. And I learned a lesson that day.
Yeah.
And it is, charge more, because especially as you get into bigger brands and bigger clients, there can be an inflection point where, if you're too cheap, it's too good to be true. And that's the feedback I got through like back channel of like why they ended up going in that direction, is like everything sounded great, but they had this feeling of like, could I really get all that for only 50 grand? Like, feels too good to be true. Something's up.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, yeah, there's like a psychology there. And I think it was like a really important lesson for me, because I think that structuring packages moving forward from there, we were thinking more about, okay, if a branding package is I don't know, 10 grand for like the baseline business, then for a corporation, a big brand, we're going to add, you know, 10% on top of that, or 50% on top of that. For a nonprofit, maybe we'll cut 50% of it. And so it's like the exact same package, but based on, to your point, like the client and the perception, you could scale that up and down with the exact same work. And that's definitely was effective for us in that day. So I completely agree. And I think the methodology of knocking that price up every time you talk to somebody new is a really good way to test, for sure.
An additional question that I think would be helpful for people for you to answer. So do you think that it's better to have set packages whenever you get started, or do you think it is better to maybe have a baseline of what the deliverables are and then talk to them and then set package rates after you have that conversation?
Yeah, you know, in our sales process, we got into this place where we were like, actually, the faster we can get to cost, the faster the sale will go or not go. So what I mean by that is like the next best thing to a yes is a fast no, in my opinion. So I like to lead as much as I can with, here is the general like budget or cost of these types of initiatives, and then I, you know, can tailor and customize those packages from there. But I think that a lot of clients have the same frustration in a different way, which is like, I just want to know how much this is going to cost, because they are also trying to do that vetting. And so I think like the sooner, in my opinion, the sooner you can talk about pricing with a prospective client, the better, because it will also help you not waste your own time when you are growing. And there are a million, you know, potential things that you could be doing. And then, oh, I just had, you know, 5 phone calls with this client and it fell through, like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Or they stole all my ideas, which is also a fun thing also that clients like to do. Yeah, so I do think there's a bit of a nuance there. I don't think it's as straightforward as just like fixed pricing, but because there is customization to it. But I think if you have those building blocks and a general sense, we would give people ranges a lot. Like, websites typically range from, you know, 10 to 15,000, depending on how many pages and how many plugins. And we were doing the build too, not just the design. And so I think that also is a factor. And that's why, like, with pricing in particular, I'm a big proponent of stop trying to price myself with like an hourly rate, like a person, and price the work. How complicated is it? How much expertise does it require? How much time do we think it'll take? How much uncertainty is there around it? Like, these are all factors that can increase or decrease what you might charge a client versus trying to, like, you know, quantify your self-worth literally in one hourly rate, which feels crazy.
And like, how much money is the site going to bring to them, or whatever you're providing? How much are they going to have a return on this investment? Because sometimes it's massive. Like, some of these businesses are millions and millions a year. You're not going to charge them $10,000 for a website. You're helping them make it here. So that's something to keep into consideration as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like that the ROI and like the value provided and the return is like throughout our sales process, just constantly reminding the client of that. Even if it's something as small as a logo. Well, guess what? That logo is representing your brand on everything. So even if it's one logo, it's important. Gonna live everywhere. So like, like, you know, there's a lot of thought and value that goes into that. So I think continuing to remind people through that process too really helps with speeding up the cycle. I'm curious, like, I always like to ask this question because I think that, I don't know, people always give different answers to it, which is like, what is one thing that surprised you about starting a business that was sort of like unexpected, good or bad?
First thing, the good. Let's start with the good. The good, well, there's not really a bad, but the good was that how supportive the community on Instagram is. And then even, I don't get on Facebook much, but like the whole community of business owners on social media, I found to be incredibly supportive. I've made so many friends. I've never met them in real life, but we're Instagram friends, and we talk to each other more than I talk to some of my real life friends. Like, the community is so supportive, and that's especially, I know whenever people just get started out, they get really nervous. Like, what are people going to think of me? They're scared to post stuff. It's doesn't even need to be a concern, because you're putting stuff out there, trying your hardest. People are not going to look down on you for that. Like, especially the people who are in the mix and doing what you're doing, they appreciate that. Real recognizes real, and they respect you for it. Like, there's not anything you need to be concerned about. So that was the good. And then the bad, but it's not bad, was that I think that even the business owners that you feel like have everything together, they're all still figuring it out. Like you said, Google University is the thing. Like, nobody has it all figured out. Even the ones that have been doing it for years, still figuring stuff out every day.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think that those two like feelings actually go very much hand in hand, which is like the feeling of imposter sort of syndrome and worrying about like sticking your neck out kind of goes hand in hand with this false idea that we all have that like someone else knows something that I don't know and is like I'm doing it wrong, you know? And I think like I could not agree more. Like, there's one thing I know about business. It's that there's no right way to do it. Everybody is doing it slightly differently or their own way or what works for them. And so the faster you can kind of open up to other business owners, I think the faster you're able to build that support network. So I feel like that is really good, nice to hear. And I feel like people will really resonate with that, in that like you found a lot of really awesome community, and there is no comparison to having a conversation with another founder, you know, like to your point about like spending more time sometimes with these people than your friends. It's like sometimes it is hard to have friends and family like really understand some of the challenges. And so having a support network is like, you need it to survive.
And I will, for people who are just starting, this is something that I did, and one of the best things I did in my business was whenever I just got started and I had that course, I found a friend in that course, and we're accountability partners, and we have met every single week, minus a couple of them, but every single week for the past almost 2 years now.
Wow.
We've met, been able to grow together, and that's another one. I've never met her in real life, but I'm sure we will. Somebody to have with you through difficult times.
There we go.
Am I here? I was freezing. But somebody to have with you throughout all those.
I just got a
call.
There we go. Sorry, I had got like an emergency alert, so that's why I was like,
they're good. But definitely, like, people who are just starting, try to find you an accountability partner, because that makes a huge difference when you have somebody who's going through it with you and you can grow together.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's like a co-founder, but almost better because you're less like emotionally invested in the problems, I guess, like of each other's, and you can basically like you know, give each other advice without spiraling in any way of like, you know, the business that you're trying to build together. It's so, that's so interesting. I I've also seen a few new tools coming up where you can like randomly match with somebody, almost like chat roulette, but for productivity. So like
That's
you both
cool.
agree that you're going to work for 2 hours, and then you're kind of just almost on a chat or a hangout silently, essentially, while you're both working to help with accountability, like remotely, which feels weird, but works. It's like when I go to a coffee shop and I'm like, I need people to think I'm working, so I actually get things done. Oh, the human
That's
brain. um, so last question, which is something that we always ask in terms of people who are thinking about taking the leap during this interview. Any advice for folks who are looking to take the leap?
into entrepreneurism.
Yeah,
Just do it.
freelance. Yeah, I know.
Literally do it. Everybody's scared whenever they get started. Everybody feels like they don't know what they're doing or they're not qualified. The only way you're gonna get the experience is by doing it. You can watch YouTube videos all day long, but if you don't ever take that action, it's never gonna happen. You're just gonna watch everybody else start these businesses and you're gonna be like, man, I wish that was me. But you just need to take the action. Take the first step and then you'll learn as you go.
Yeah, and I think to that end, like giving yourself the room to fail as you're learning
Yeah.
is like so super important, because I think that's also like why people get paralyzed, right? Is they're afraid
Yeah.
of failing. And the truth is, like, I fail every day a little bit at something,
Yeah.
you know?
It's a thing. Like you can't be scared of it. Just embrace the failure and accept it as part of the process of growth.
Yeah, amazing. Well, listen, Bailey, it was so amazing to talk to you. If people want to find you, follow along on your journey, where's the best place for them to do that?
Right here on Instagram. You can tap the chat above, I think, have my name pop down, but I'm Honeywave Creative if you want to search me. Send me a DM. Let me know you're in this chat.
Amazing. Go find her. She's doing some really awesome work. And also check out her website, because there are some really cool things to look through in terms of like packaging and pricing if you're thinking through your own setup. Bailey, I always appreciate anybody who is willing to be transparent about that stuff, because it really helps other people, in addition to, I think, probably is bringing you in a higher quality client in general. So thank you so much for sharing all the wisdom and your journey so far. And I'm excited to see what you do next.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Have a good night, everybody. We will be back, I believe, next week with another episode of The Leap. So catch us then, and have a good night.
All right, bye.